part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero! A superhero! Breakthrough! It's taken a while! It's been worth the wait!
To mark a new beginning. We are the ones of the spoken word. We are the ones who keep the planet spinning. Hey, yes, one day we will rule the world.
Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Football Show. This is Series 2, episode number 4. We are live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. A.C.E Podcast Nation, of course, your home to many great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. Please do give us a follow on social media. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. Click the bell for notifications to get all our shows first and foremost. And of course, the audio. We are now part of the Sports Social Podcast Network, the UK's first dedicated sports network. You can find all of A.C.E Podcast Nation shows, including the Andy Campbell Football Show, including the Andy Campbell Championship Show at the Sports Social Network. And you can have a look at some of their other podcasts by visiting www.sport-social.co.uk. They got lots of different shows and series on all sorts of sports and whatnot. And this year, we are supporting a charity, Super 6 Prediction League, raising money for two fantastic charities, Maggie's Centre, which is a cancer charity, and of course, Mind, which is a mental health charity. There's a number of ex-Cardiff City players you can compete against. There are also cash prizes for the league winners. The first round started over the weekend. I believe I got the Swansea score bang on, just so we know. And but we'd love as many viewers as possible to get involved. If you do want to join, I think you could still join late. You could join the Facebook group, is in the description below, or contact Will Melush, who I think you'll find in the live chat this evening on Facebook, and he'll tell you all about it. But we are very happy to support them and the charities, of course. So get involved. Let us know how your predictions did. And of course, a big thank you to Black Diamond Sports, as ever, for all their support around the channel and the shows. They're a global sports agency which represents sports stars from around the world. For more information, you can visit their social media and, of course, their website. The links to which are in the description underneath the video. And today's sponsor, as ever, Darren Ralston and Bespoke Financial. Darren is giving away a free will worth £140 with any new policy which is taken out. Please do check him out and give him a call. Do not miss out on what is an incredible offer. He's looked after Andy for various policies over the years, the critical illness, the injury cover. They are top of their field. They provide award-winning service, and we are very proud to partner with such a brand. If you need further information or you need Darren's contact details, you can get them from myself or Andy. And of course, I believe they're in the description as well. And I urge you to check them out, see if they've got a service for you. And they will do everything they can to help you, especially if you say we sent you to them. Next, and the main event, some would say, I'm very happy to introduce first and foremost my co-host. He is the goal collector, the fox in the box, still the king of the Millennium Stadium. He is my co-host, ex-Cardiff City and Middlesbrough striker, the goal machine, Mr. Andy Campbell. How are you, my friend?
Good evening. Yeah, no, look, I'm really excited for this. I think the word legend is branded about too easy. But tonight we are going to talk to a proper legend for a football club and to the game. I think is I think inside and out, genuinely nice guy, and can't wait to dig deep, so to speak. But great weekend of football, by the way. I'm still buzzing watching the Middlesbrough game yesterday. To be honest, I think every Middlesbrough fan going to Fulham and getting a result was nice. Nice to see an average squad at the minute pick up a good point against a very good side.
Yes, indeed, mate. 100%. It's a great result. But you are right, and I'm very excited to welcome. He is a bona fide legend, the original one-club man, the scorer of that goal, Cardiff City legend, Mr. Scott Young. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, good evening, lads. Thanks again, Sonia. Looking forward to it.
Great to have you on. I think first and foremost, though, that I think the group chat side will have to deem which goal was the most important. I think it's the only fair way. I think it's the only fair way with us both being on the show. You know what I mean? Yeah, but which one, Craig? Which one was the most important? Come on. I'm not bothered either way. I'll be honest, but we all know which one.
I'm giving it to you, mate. You know, I'm giving it to you.
All right. Do you know what's really, really, really good, and this is something which is stayed with me since that day. The goal was great, but it was a celebration straight after when the final whistle went. You always remember. I remember that the first people who came up to me, you and Gav Gordon, and it was just that meant more than the goal meant because we were such a tight group, and especially when we hadn't been playing a lot that season, and we were, you know what I mean, we were in and out of the team, a few of us, and you know what I mean, I've been injured, you've been injured, and you get to know people a little bit more, and you get close to them a little bit. And I think that was key, that the first team and some of the players who play regular had that relationship, but I think off the pitch with the banter and the things that went on off the pitch and away from football, I think we had a really good group, and you know what I mean, that's always stuck by me, and it's something that and I said to Gav Gordon when Gav was on the show as well, that always stuck by me, that and you just remember the little things sometimes in your career.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, like you said, I mean, there's a few of us that you suffered, you know, some serious injuries and didn't play a lot, but it just meant so much to us all as a group. Like you said, we're quite close as a team, as a group. And, you know, that day at the Millennium Stadium stay with me. And it's up there with the Leeds game, and I didn't even play. You know, the celebrations after that, the team and all the fans together, it was just amazing. And certainly stay with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I know obviously we're going to talk about that because and more, but obviously I know off the pitch we played hard and partied harder, probably partied even harder, which is great, team spirit and all that. And I know we're going to dig deep, but obviously I think it's important side that we start the show like we normally start it, and we get the viewers to get to know Youngie even better with a few nice questions, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult because normally when I do the Magnificent Seven, I throw in I ask the guest to choose between two football clubs that they've been at like the most. So it's a really difficult question for him. But Scott's was at Cardiff for his whole career, so it makes it a bit trickier. But I'm sure I could find a grenade or two for him. We'll have a go. But let's go. Magnificent Seven for Scott Young. Okay, Scott Young, Magnificent Seven. Nice and easy to start. Messi or Ronaldo?
Ronaldo.
Favorite TV show?
Good. Narcos. Watching Narcos at the moment.
Okay.
Good shout. Managing or playing?
Playing. A lot easier.
The most hostile atmosphere you ever played a game of football in?
Other than Ninian Park, the Den.
Here we go. Angriest teammate?
Willie Borland.
Yes.
He's come up quite a few times, yeah. And you know what? I seen him not so long ago and spoke to him about him. Even when he came on, we asked him the same question, and I couldn't keep a straight face because he knew what we were going to say straight away, that it's just his name keeps coming on. It's not a bad thing, and this is what me and Cyborg said to him. Like, it's just funny that it keeps coming up.
Brilliant.
It's outstanding. I love that. I love it every time it comes up. It makes me smile every time his name comes up. Gabidon or Collins?
I'm gonna have to go Gabadon because he's my golf partner as well. So I'm gonna go Gabadon because he'll get upset otherwise.
And then the final question is: it doesn't have to be football related, but who is the greatest Welshman that's ever lived?
Tough question that is. For me personally, and what he's done for me, I'd say my dad.
Good shout.
Good question. I haven't seen my old man in the questions yet, but I picked my old man because I think it's such a broad question, but for me it's a personal question as well. So it's like it's a fabulous answer because it's absolutely bang on for me.
Spot on, mate, 100%. We had a little super chat there from Gaz. He says, "We'll never forget that FA Cup game versus Leeds. Absolute carnage, and that's from a hammer. Ninian Park was one of the UK's great grounds. Sadly missed." I think,
not really for West Ham fans also, because West Ham used to get a trawling every time. By the way, we used to have a really good record at Ninian Park. I think, especially during my time. I don't know what it was like before I came, but I think we battered him a couple of times midweek, at least 4. A couple of times it was always nice to play on a night against West Ham.
I think it's the ground, mate, isn't it? I think like for fans who kind of grew up in football, watching football in like the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, it's those grounds like Ninian Park. They're proper football grounds. And, you know, I understand the need for changing football grounds to what they are now. But to me, it'll never be the same as Ninian Park, even though it was falling apart and, you know, all the things we've discussed before. Like, it's a special place for me. Like, that's where I saw my first football matches, you know, in person with my old man and stuff like that. It's things you don't forget. But like, Scott, what's your memories of Ninian Park, particularly as a younger guy as well coming through?
Yeah, obviously it's a special place for me, and you know, I remember signing there as a schoolboy, as like a 13, 14-year-old, and we used to train there every Monday and Wednesday, everything off the pitch, and you know, just working. We used to work in the tunnel and the corridor, going down to the change rooms, doing weights, you know, press ups, sit ups, everything like that, and just the sort of. It was just so special just to be training in the corridor as a 13, 14-year-old. You know, they're my earliest memories of, you know, Gavin Tate, who was our youth team sort of coach, and putting us through our paces sort of off the pitch, and then out onto the track and doing laps and laps and laps of the pitch on the old sort of dirt track there. But like you said, the place was falling apart, but you wouldn't change any of it. You know,
no.
Go back on that one. Did that give you an appetite though to want to get on the pitch, so to speak? You know what I mean? You've done the stuff in the corridor, you've done the stuff on the track. Did that give you the appetite to go one step further?
Yeah, and like I say, it was a corridor leading off the first team change room, and we used to go into the change room, and obviously work in there as well. And you know, when you walk into that change room, for me as a Cardiff City fan, and you know, what you're thinking, like, you know, Paul Ramsey used to sit there. Carl Dale was sitting there, and I was thinking, wow, this is where I want to be, you know, and certainly sort of drives you on. And, you know, those memories, you know, will stay with me forever. And the first time I walked into that change room to change on a match day was, you know, special.
How did you feel?
Sorry,
You
spoke there though. What about? So is that what made you stand out from the rest then? You know what I mean? Because you must have had some other good footballers and good lads in that group who potentially won and made it and won and gone to that next level. Is that what made you stand out for the rest, that you wanted it more and you wanted to join in with that group and you wanted to drive your own career along because of your love for Cardiff City?
I think there's a number of things. I mean, my apprentice group, I think it was 8 or 9 of us got taken on as a pro. Some of us earlier than others. But listen, if I'm being brutally honest, I think the difference for me was my mentality. My drive. I wasn't the most naturally gifted footballer, but my drive and mentality was the big one for me, and I think it's massive for young kids these days as well. But and the other one, it's a bit of luck. Listen, make no bones about it. You know, an injury in the first team give me the opportunity in my position, and then it's down to you to take it then as well. So I think, you know, these young lads, you know, you've got to be in the right place at the right time as well. But certainly for me, that stood out I can remember, like, that was my mentality. I was so driven to be a pro at Cardiff and to put that jersey on. It was,
That's interesting, that is, Scott, because Andy's said quite similar about himself a few times over the shows. And like you've commented, saying maybe you weren't the most technically gifted footballer, but your desire and your attitude and your focus and your application and desire to want to be a professional footballer was perhaps higher than other people's. And I think, obviously, Scott, you've worked within like youth systems as well. Like that can make such a difference to a young footballer, innit? Like you could be the best footballer. I see him even in some of the younger academies when I've been watching my boys. You see some of these boys and they are unbelievable footballers, but their attitude is not great in various different ways. And you just wonder where that balance is, like where it's going to go. Is their attitude going to hold them back? Or is there a technical ability and a natural ability going to take them through? And it's interesting to me. I don't know what you think from working in the youth systems.
I think it's even more so important these days, especially at clubs, at championship level and above, and even so in League One and League Two. These players at the young age are given so much now. Everything's set out for them, everything's ready for them. They haven't got any of the, the cleaning of the stands, the boots, and all that.
Don't start me on that now. I can't. Really,
they're giving it.
Really
So, I mean, their mentality needs to be spot on. And listen, these players now have been in academies for, like, at the age of 16, they've probably done 9 years in an academy. So, there's certainly a lot more better players around, I believe, now, technically. You're competing with that, but mentality might be the one that stands you out from the rest. That's my thoughts on it as well.
I totally agree, and I think what you just said there, Youngie, about being better players within the group. Same as me when I was growing up in Middlesbrough. Nobody wanted it more than me. To wear that red shirt for me at Middlesbrough was something that I'd always dreamed of doing, and I knew that if I wanted it more than anybody else, I'd run over me. Your grandma do it, I was so driven and determined to get it done, and I've seen that in abundance with you. You know what I mean? That you use your attributes to make you stand out from the rest. You know what I mean? That I've always said, and I've said on this show, said on various other platforms, that I was never technically very good, but the attributes that I had made me stand out from other people because I utilised them and used it. You know what I mean? You can't teach somebody to be quick. You can get a little bit quicker, but you can't teach it. I don't think you can teach people to be as determined and to be sometimes to be a leader and to be a winner. You know what I mean? That's inside you. And when I see that at Cardiff City and in yourself and in other players, I know we laughed and we joked about Willie Boland and things, and I love the answers coming in, by the way, because I think it made him stand out. You know what I mean? That you could guarantee that if you were on Willie's team in training, you'd win that 5-a-side game, or you'd come close. You'd have an enjoyable training session. It would be a horrible training session, and you'd feel as though your ears were burning. And I'd hate the drive home because I used to drive a car with him going home, and it'd be a nightmare. But you'd always guarantee the win because he was just that kind of driven person, and his mentality was just like that. But I know we've had this grumble here about Continents League football and under-23 football, which for me, it didn't do me any harm growing up and playing against men. I think I would have hated to get to a certain age and still be playing against people of my own age or younger, because I think men make you adaptable. It makes you grow up really quickly, and as I say, it didn't do you any harm. Me, Willie, all those kind of people who came through at a similar time. I think it was just like for like, and it made us probably hungrier to get back in, to get in the first team quicker.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. You like Willie Boland, like you say, he trained like it was his last training session every day, and that's the biggest compliment I can give him. He never left anything out there in whatever he done on that football pitch, and he dragged people with him, which is the biggest thing. And I don't think we have that in our society. Leaders, communicators these days as much. I think. But do you think
it gets taken out of people, like kids at a young age? Like they get told. So, for instance, on Parks football now on a Saturday, until you play league football at like under 12s, under 13s, they don't even want you to keep score and keep track of who's winning football. And like, I do get the importance of inclusion and making sure everyone enjoys it at a young age. Of course, I get all that. But being competitive is good. Having that competitive drive to want to be the best that you can be personally and as a team is good. And I do feel like as a society, we're trying to take that out of people. And I think
certainly, I mean, for me, it's got to come in within. But in terms of the team environment, I think it's good to have a blend of everything. So, there's times where, you just want to go and play and enjoy it, and that then you have competitive matches. So if you get a bit of everything, especially at the younger ages, it's like individually, I suppose, if you're a good centre forward at the under 10s and they want to play you up at under 12s, whatever, and they play you up there for the whole season and you don't get a shot all year, that's not good for your development. But it may be that you're stepping back down and at under 9 level or something, and he has 4 or 5 shots and scores 4 or 5 goals. That's obviously good for him. So I think it's got to be a good blend of, the competitiveness, and the other side of the game, so they can develop as well.
Of course, yeah. And I think one thing they do very well now at community and parks clubs and in academies and development centres is they teach kids to be technically good footballers. Like even kids who are not in academies now, you'll see loads of them who are excellent footballers, much better than, back when I was playing as a kid at that age. It was basically just kick the ball over the defenders and the strikers or the wingers would run onto it, and that was the way the game was played.
That was Lenny and Butts' tactic.
Well, the one thing I will say, which I believe is wrong, and hopefully they're changing it now, is that in these elite academies, there's no competitive leagues under 18s.
Yeah.
You expect them to compete in the league under 18 and then go into a first team environment and win every week. They can't just turn that on at the age of 16. So that's got to change. We need to be competitive from a young age with a balance as well, I believe. That's
I totally agree. We've spoke at length about this, Youngie. I think it's so important for children and everybody, every person who plays involved in sport, that you can't win every week, and it's about handling defeats. It's about managing games. That's what it is, because it's 1 week you might lose, or you might be losing, and it's about handling how do you adapt during a game if you're losing, and you need to understand that feeling. And likewise, if you're winning, it's about hanging on to a victory. It's about, because when you get in the first game and you don't hang on to something, you won't last 5 minutes with a manager nowadays if you're not ready for it. You need to be ready for it. You need to have that feeling of what it's like in your stomach, that you're in the last minute of a game, that you're trying to hang on to a victory, especially a centre half. Because what's the point if it doesn't matter if you let a goal in? Every goal counts. Every goal matters. And I don't like it. I think I understand why they do these things. I understand why they're trying to put them in place, try and make it more enjoyable, and trying to get players to be technically better and improve from minute 1 to minute 95, which is great. But for me, I think it's about managing.
Yeah, I think. Obviously, I've left Cardiff now, but at the end of sort of my time at Cardiff, I think that realism was coming into the academy more and more. In terms of seeing out games and doing it the right way, because you can't switch that on at 18, 19, 20 when you start playing first team football. It's an art, how to see out the game, slow it down, make the right decisions. And certainly at Cardiff, they started doing a lot of that sort of scenario-based stuff, which is pleasing.
Yeah, no, listen, I totally agree. Just on the point, because I can't miss it out, because obviously there's an influx at the minute of young Cardiff City players hitting the first team or the squads or the national teams at every level. How proud is it, being an ex-coach, to see these kind of players and being given an opportunity in the first team or the squad or national teams? Do you take a step back and be proud that you made an impact on those kind of players?
Listen, I get asked this question sort of day in, day out, obviously, living in and around South Wales and Cardiff, and people see me. But listen, the credit goes to the coaches who have been there for the last 6, 7, 8 years, working with these kids, day in, day out. You like Dane Facey, Tom Huttons, people like that, and who've sort of been there from day one with these kids and worked right through. And now the club is seeing, the fruition of it, all these lads coming through. So, it's credit to them guys. Obviously, I've done little bits with the defensive departments and stuff like that. But these guys are the ones who go out with them day in, day out, and it's a credit to them. But now,
do they get enough credit, Youngie? In your opinion, do they get enough credit? These the coaches, do they get enough credit? Because obviously the manager gets credit for putting them in the first team because he believes and he listens. But do the coaches get enough credit?
Both, yeah. Listen, you got to have a manager first and foremost who's brave and is willing to take a chance on the youngster. So fair play to Mick and who's doing that now. But yeah, the coaches need more praise because they're the ones who've sort of the produce these kids, to be fair. And people talk about Craig Bellamy. I was around when he first came to the club, and sort of he was a big part in sort of changing the academy sort of outlook in how we play and the culture and the style. So it's credit to all these guys who've been there for the last, like I say, 5, 6, 7 years for me.
The other thing as well is and I think it's probably been a gripe of Cardiff fans a lot, probably since Aaron Ramsey left, is that they like a homegrown player, as you know, Scott. And I think we have felt like there's been a couple of younger players on the brink of first team football, and they'll get to the bench of the first team. They won't play, and then they'll get released for next to nothing. And it can be very frustrating as a Cardiff fan. But then equally, at the end of last season and this season, you've suddenly got 2 or 3 in and around the squad playing in games. And I think that automatically gives fans a lift to see these guys who've come through the club and the system. There's just something special about those players, I think, isn't there?
Of course, I've been there and come through that sort of system many years ago. But when you walk up as a first team player, homegrown first team player, the fans are straight away on your side. You know what I mean? It's not like Cam's come from a different club and sort of earn his reputation. An homegrown player will get that straight away. They're on his side. They'll back him because they want him to do well, and they want everyone to do well, obviously. But it's just that special sort of connection, I suppose, with an homegrown player. And listen, we've got quite a few on the fringes at the moment, and it's a great opportunity to get sort of some more Welsh blood back in that first team, really.
100%, mate. I want to ask you about Ruben Corwell a bit later on, but before we do that, we're going to it's my fault. I got distracted by Ninian Park memories, and I threw myself off my schedule. But we're going to do something, Scott. It's called Tell Me Why. And basically, I put 2 questions to you and Andy. Neither one of you know the question or the subject beforehand, and you've got 60 seconds to discuss what I put to you. And as the guest, you get to decide, would you like to go first or second?
I'll let the main man go first. Go on. I'll follow on.
There we go.
Do you know what? I think it's tougher going second, to be honest. But the question is, I think I'm going to have a guess. Can I have a guess at a question?
Go on.
I'll go Messi.
He's involved in one of the questions, but he's not about it's not about him. It's not about him.
It's all I've heard for the last 2 days.
But he is mentioned in it. But all right, tell me why. Here we go. Okay, so Messi is leaving Barcelona. You might not have heard, Andy, so I'll just let you know that. But also, Sergio Aguero today was announced that he's out for 10 weeks with injury. And apparently there's up to 10 players rumoured to be up for sale at Barcelona. Barcelona looking quite a pickle. Discuss their season, their potential aims, and what a tough job, or not, that Ronald Koeman has got. And as your 60 seconds starts now.
I watched them last night against Juventus, actually, and I thought they looked absolutely excellent. They had some good young players, but I do believe they're in a mess. They're in a mess, obviously, financially, and I think from an outsider looking in with obviously TV deals and sponsorship deals, I think it's going to take a lot of work to get their reputation back, which I think is a shame for all the hard work that all the players have done. There's Xavis, the Iniestas, the Piqués, the Messis, and then you can go back to Rivaldo's and Ronaldinho's, etc., and the Guardiolas. But for me, you can only look at what's going on now. And like I said, I watched them yesterday and I thought Depay was excellent. I thought Jordi Alba, they've got the spine of the team still, which I think is important. They need to keep hold of. But I think reputationally wise, I think they're really, really shot to pieces. And I'm really worried for them going forward. Ronald Koeman didn't look in a great Going to great look at health as well, which is probably understandable with the stress that has been put on the football club over the last few weeks or few months.
And 2 seconds left. We'll lay you off. 2 seconds, mate. Lay you off 2 seconds.
That's a hard question, that.
It is difficult, and apparently Aguero's not happy already, and has sort of indicated there was rumours. He'd indicated that he might want to go.
He didn't come on yesterday, and I wondered why. He swapped shirts with Bonucci, and he just didn't look very happy. Obviously, he must have been injured at the time, but there's obviously a reason behind that. But he just didn't look very happy. From
his point of view, he's Argentinian. It's his last big contract of his career. He's signed to play alongside Messi, I'd have thought, and Messi's on his way, isn't he?
He's family, so he signed there on the pretense that he was going to play alongside him, and it's going to be a friendship and a family-orientated club. But
Kelly says
the grass isn't always greener.
Yeah, Kelly says there Aguero's not even registered yet for Barcelona. So could he be a future fiction question, or like a pub quiz question, whereby which footballer signed for Barcelona and never played a league game or something like that? Be interesting. I think he's injured now, so he was probably there. But Scott, same question to you, mate, and you got 60 seconds to discuss starting now.
Yeah, well, listen, I think first and foremost, Barcelona over the last sort of 10 years have been the top of the game. But I think over the last sort of 2-3 years, or even maybe a little longer, that you've seen this coming sort of thing. Sort of the fall from grace has sort of continued sort of year to year. And conference with Messi leaving yesterday and all the players there and all that. And I think that's going to be the biggest impact in this football club. For the next year or two, I see a massive rebuild. Do I see Koeman as the right man? It's a tough one. Like Andy says, he doesn't seem to be in a good place himself at the moment. So yeah, they've got a massive rebuild on their hands in terms of losing Messi, and just in terms of the fans itself, what that sort of means to the fans. It's going to be a tough old year for them.
And that's your 60 seconds there, mate. So I want to ask you both a question. Andy, when you left Boro, being the hometown lad, did you hold a press conference and cry?
No. I think I had about 25 minutes to get out of the building as soon as possible.
Get out.
Chased out. Because I was quick. I got out really quickly, so I was all right. I was quite safe as houses. But listen, I was gutted to leave, but I don't think it was needed to what I saw yesterday at that kind of level. Listen, I think this is what people's gripe for me is: why doesn't he stay and play for free? And part of me thinks after watching that yesterday that he doesn't obviously want to leave, so play for free. Because if you're that upset about leaving and you love that club so much, you play for free. You know what I mean? If I was fit enough now, I would play for Middlesbrough for free tomorrow.
You could play for 25 grand a week, couldn't he? Do you know what I mean?
He'd play for free.
I'm sure 25 grand a week would be difficult for him to manage, but
I agree.
In 5 years' time, they might have money again, so he might be able to get paid indirectly, or he might be manager in 3 years' time. But
I'm not sure there's not any sort of legal rule that you can't take that such a pay cut or something. There may be something.
But surely though, Youngie, that's down to the player. If the player wants to, I
agree with everything.
Let's say he signs for Paris Saint-Germain, and Paris Saint-Germain offer him 100 grand a week. I don't know what he's getting paid now, but I think it's more than that. But he gets paid 100 grand a week. Well, he's taking a pay cut already. So if he's going to take a pay cut to go, he won't take a pay cut. By the way, I'm just surmising that this kind of thing's there. It just doesn't wash with me. I just think FIFA, the delegates, the associations, for me, they don't need to get involved. If the player wants to stay, let him stay. If he doesn't want to stay, then let him go. It's dead easy, really.
There may be there's another question behind it. Is there something else going on in the background? He wanted to leave last year.
Yeah.
So
so Kelly says that apparently he can't because they can't register him because of how much money they owe to the Spanish government, and I think that's probably it's to do with the Spanish fair play rules. There's something going on with Barcelona and the government and the La Liga, and it just seems to be causing all sorts of issues. But we've seen football clubs when football clubs are in financial trouble, players take pay cuts, don't they? Like
it's a good job Derby County aren't in this mess, then, isn't it? Because they'd be screwed for life with the troubles they're having at the minute.
Well, that's it,
You know
mate.
what I mean? I just don't understand it. For me, it could easily be resolved if the. But then you've got the individual. Because I'm sure Messi's had his own personal issues with tax and stuff within the industry as well within Spain. So maybe that's another issue that he has to get out. I don't know. You know, it looks as though he wants to stay, but obviously he can't. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, mate, he gets paid like £1 million a week with sponsors and all the bonuses and stuff he gets. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be all right financially wherever he goes.
Going back to Barcelona though, for a sec, because you talk about Aguero signing there. Listen, he's been in and out of Man City injuries for the last 2 years. You know what I mean? So that tells you a little bit where Barcelona are as a club as well. I think sort of bringing someone in. Listen, Premier League, he's ripped it up for years and years, but he's coming to the end of his career now, and injury after injury. So I think it tells you where Barcelona are as a club at the moment as well.
I totally agree. And I think that's Spanish football as well, Stein, which we spoke. You know what I mean? It sounds like that the Spanish Football Federation have moved to a TV deal and got Gary Lineker and Steve McManaman and all these kind of ex-players and really good footballers involved, but the best footballers on the pitch are leaving and going away. So it's going to be a strange thing. It's like they're doing everything backwards. But hopefully, listen, Barcelona and Real Madrid are world-class football sides and squads and teams. So for me, I hope it's not the end for those kind of clubs. But if it is, then it is.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is, mate, I hope that in 10 years' time, Madrid and Barcelona are still two of the biggest clubs in Europe, but I hope this is the beginning of money within football, like around the whole world, becoming a bit more realistic and just becoming. It's got to pop at some point and just get back to being. I'm not saying get back to like it was in the 70s or something, where footballers are not getting paid very much. I'm just saying, let's make it a little bit realistic and not be paying footballers £1 million a week. That's ludicrous. So this question, I think, will be a bit more difficult for Andy than Scott, but we'll see. So the question is, Wales's World Cup hopes. Bale is desperately out of form, seems unsure and unhappy at Madrid. Plus, you've got the strange time of year. The World Cup's being played from November to December this year. Wales' group at the moment, they look all right. They look like they could qualify. Didn't play particularly well in the Euros. It's going to mix in with the season as well. So I'd like to discuss that. Who was first? Andy, you were first, mate, weren't you? So your 60 seconds as an Englishman. Discuss Wales and the upcoming World Cup. Your 60 seconds starts now.
First and foremost, they need to sort the manager situation out. The manager has got to they've got to appoint a manager, and the manager's got to be given an opportunity to select his own squads and things. So the earlier they can do that, the better. If that is Pagey, great. If it's not, and they keep Ryan Giggs in, it's not going to work. And we spoke this about in the Euro show. The players are a little bit up in air about selections and things, and you've got players who probably weren't in the Euro squad who want an opportunity to get in the World Cup. It qualifies to progress in the World Cup squad. For me, I think it's a real difficult one, but the manager's got to be there first, and then you've got to qualify. Not going to be in the easiest groups, but Wales have done it before, and I believe with the passion, which is evident every time you see the players play, they want to play for the shirt and they give everything and more for their country, which isn't always the case within the home nations, in my opinion. And I put England in that bracket. You know, I mean, Wales seems to just run through a brick wall every time they put that red shirt on, which is just amazing. I hope, like I've always said, I'm a British fan. I love all the British teams to get through. It makes it so much interesting. That's a hard question, though.
It is a difficult one. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing Scott's views on it, because as a Welshman as well. So we'll have a chat about it in a minute. But Scott, your 60 seconds on Wales and the World Cup and such starts now.
Yeah, first and foremost, I agree with Andy. They've got to get the manager role sorted ASAP. And for me, I mean, I give it to Pagey. I think the way he sort of managed himself and the group in the Euros, he was second to none. So yeah, that needs to be sorted. In terms of the group, I really fancy us to qualify. And the big if is we have to sort of keep our best players fit, and they have to be playing. So that includes Ramsey at Juventus, has to be Bale at Real Madrid, those type of players. Harry Wilson now at Fulham. The lads sort of playing at the top of the game. They've got to be playing week in, week out, and the most important thing is available for the international sort of get-togethers, the camps. If we can keep our sort of strongest players on the pitches at the right times, I believe we've got a great chance of qualifying. And then, like you say, when we get there, then there's numerous
That's
other
just 60
problems.
seconds as well there, Scott. Make some good points there, I thought, both of you. Few people in the chat saying they felt like Robert Page was a little bit out of his depth in the Euros. I thought personally he did some good stuff. I thought he did some not so good stuff. But either way, they got to make a decision. They have to decide what they're doing because it is leaving everyone a little bit up in the air. No one quite knows where they stand. Reese asked a good question, and I'd be very interested to hear both you guys because you can both have a slightly different take on it. So I'll ask you, Scott, first. Reese says, what's your thoughts on the Welsh FA's insistence on hiring Welsh only as for the Wales job? Do you think that should be a thing, or do you think they should just get the best man for the job regardless?
Obviously, the best man for the job is always the right man for the job. For me, if he's a Welshman, that's even better. I think we have a lot of quality coaches here in Wales who seem not to fit the bill because they're Welsh and they haven't got a European background or whatever. And that, but there's certainly enough good coaches and managers who are Welsh who are capable of doing the Welsh job. For me, I'd love to see a Welshman in charge.
Is there someone who sticks out for you if you had to pick and Robert Page was not an option? Is there someone who jumps at you and you think straight away?
Not off the top of my head. I'd have to have a think about it. And obviously,
would you give someone like Bellamy a go, or would you think he'd be better as like on the coaching staff first? Because obviously Mark Hughes went straight in, didn't he, and did a pretty good job.
If Bellas is going to ever take over the Welsh job, he's got to go straight in as a manager because Bellas is his own man. He'll do it his way. He's got his sort of mindset of how he wants a team to play, how he wants a team to set up. So, someone like Craig, I don't think would be of value going in as a number two. I think he has to be number one. He needs to be a leader. He is a leader. And, would I give it to Craig? Yeah, I think so. And maybe not this campaign, but, in a couple of campaigns when he's had more experience of being out there in the football world at the top level, then, yeah, certainly he's certainly a future Welsh manager for me.
Good shout. Andy, I'd be interested to hear about your views on the Welsh kind of, because they do tend to try and go for a Welshman to be the manager. What's your take on that? And if there's anyone who for you who sort of sticks out for that Welsh job, if it's not Robert Page. You're muted, mate.
I think it's so different to what other countries do, and I'll use England as an example. That I don't think England's passion is the same as a Welsh passion. So to have a non-Welsh manager fronting their team, I think wouldn't be as good choice as it is for England to do it. England, you see the players when they're when they're doing the national anthem. You listen to the fans, and it's passionate, but it's not as passionate as the Welsh fans and sometimes the Scottish fans. And I think with the group of players that England have to pick from, I think it's probably a no-brainer because it's worldwide. I think the Welsh manager has got to have an insight into British football, especially Welsh football. I look at the younger players. I look at their David Brooks. I look at those kind of players who were playing the Harry Wilsons, who I thought was fantastic yesterday against Middlesbrough. Who are now platforming themselves week in, week out with, for me, the Premier League 2, which is a very good standard of football, and it would be a great progression for them to go and play in the full squad week in, week out. I'd like to see Pagey get it in the long term. I'd probably like to see him having some help somewhere down the line from somebody more experienced to give him that. That's what it looked like for me in the summer, that I think when he was out of his depth a little bit, that he just needed someone to ask a question to. That's someone who is used to getting that advice from. Whereas for me, I think that experience you gain over the years. But I think for me, he's the person, if not a dual role with somebody else. If it's a Bellamy, then great, because they'll know the players inside out. They've been in the academy systems. They've been in the Welsh system. than all these kind of players. And for me, it's a no-brainer because the young players in all the academies and the young players who got selected for this tournament, they're the future. You know what I mean? It might not be Qatar, but it might be the 24, the 26 World Cups and things. You've got to look a little bit further ahead than just the next World Cup, because the next World Cup might be a little bit too much too soon in terms of qualification and success, because if they're going to get knocked out straight away, then sometimes it's best not going. You know what I mean? Because the reputation for Robin himself as a manager and a coach, it could be to his detriment and his reputation. So for me, sometimes it's about taking a step back to progress forward, and I think that could be best. And I know every Welsh fan would hate to hear that, but I think the times that England haven't made the World Cup or the Euros, it's been the best thing. You know what I mean? It's been horrible for 2 years, but it's been a good thing in the long run because they've had to take a step back and realise what's not working. And what's not working is the coach or the manager or the players.
And that's probably around the corner for Wales, if we've been honest, you know, with Ramsey and Bale.
Yeah, they'd have to find a way to play without them, wouldn't they?
So, and there's one guy, I forgot, Steve Cooper.
Well, that's a few people have said in the chat, which is interesting because they've all clarified it with, even though he's a Jack or ex-Swansea manager, but they've all said like Steve Cooper would be quite a good shout for a Welsh manager. So yeah, there is a few options that I think of good coaches. I think it was Donna said Andy should take over the Welsh job.
I've adopted Welsh, haven't I? Adopted Welsh.
Yeah, that's him.
I've only been sacked twice. So third time, look, you know.
You could have Scott take over. You and Gabs had a little stint in management for Cardiff. Could you take the Wales job? Imagine how laid back them two would be. I know, no.
I haven't got the opportunity to be laid back when I'm with Gabs, trust me.
Oh my God, I bet it.
And someone else said Alshan Roberts as well, who's obviously just joined Patrick Vieira's coaching staff as with Palace. I think he's such a good assistant. I think with Alshan Roberts, he'd be perfect to go in alongside someone like Bellamy, who's going to be, a young manager. But Bellamy gets a very mixed reaction every time we've mentioned him on these shows about the Wales job or even the Cardiff job. You always get like a load of comments of people saying either yes, definitely get him in there, his passion, his desire, his professionalism, and then you'll get another load saying he'd fall out with his own shadow. There'll be issues, there'll be this, there'll be that. It's very, very like a 50-50 split all the time.
I think that's as a person though, because I think as a player, if you ask the whole of football, the whole UK football, Craig Bellamy would have him in your team. He's like Marmite. It's 50-50. It's people love him or they hate him. You know what I mean? When he's in your team, he's the best thing since sliced bread. When he's against you, he's a nightmare because he's like Robbie Savage. You know what I mean?
It's his desire to win as well with Bellamy.
Yeah, and listen,
desire to win, and to be fair to him, his desire to sort of improve and his knowledge of the game is second. And then I remember as young kids, when we were playing for Wales in the 21, once the sort of summer tour would be over, I'd be off going to Marbella or whatever it may be. And, Bellas would be going maybe to Holland to study the game and stuff like that. From a young age, he's been so dedicated to sort of knowing the game inside out. And, I think certainly in the future, he'll definitely be a Welsh manager.
But I think that's so important though, because you see his own development as a coach. Obviously, he left Cardiff under a little bit of a cloud, but then for him to want to progress his own career, he goes overseas to go and progress himself, because overseas for me is the only way. The players are doing it now. You know what I mean? The lads are going over to Holland, to Belgium, to Germany, to better themselves technically. Managers and coaches are doing the same thing, because you can learn so much in England, but England's a ruthless business. You have a bad 6 months in England, you lose your job, and you don't get another one. You don't get another opportunity. Overseas in Europe, you'll get at least a season, and then maybe a little bit more to progress yourself through. And because you've had a good career like he has, he'll probably get a little bit more time. And when you're linked with the Cardiff job, every time the manager gets a sack or a coaching job here or at the national team, it's because he's doing a good job and because he's got a good reputation. You know what I mean? And for me, it's going to happen one day, so people are just going to have to back it, suck it up and get on with it, because he's good enough to get an opportunity.
You're spot on, to be fair. And you look, Steve Cooper, Craig Bellamy, they need a project. You might be that one where they have to take a step back to go forward again. It may have to be like a 2-3 year project, to get back to where we want to be.
Yeah. Well, we spoke on the Euro show side, didn't we, about about the experienced players of when do they cut the cord? When do they decide that we're not going to pick these kind of players anymore because we're going to go down the youthful route? They're going to have to do it sooner rather than later. Is it after Qatar? For me, I'd probably give them the last little swan song, last chance to qualify, last World Cup, because it's a stone's throw away with it being in just over a year's time. So give them the opportunity to qualify, give them opportunity to play, and then after that, just maybe integrate them into helping the young lads develop. Still have them around, have them on the coaching staff and stuff. But for me, you've got to move on sometimes.
I think that's why it's so important to keep maybe Pagey there now as well. He's just come up in Euros, and it's a short turnaround to the World Cup. He knows the players inside out. There's a group there that he's going to work with, and then, hopefully he goes on and does well at the World Cup, and things change then. But we'll see at that stage where we're at.
I think with Bale and Ramsey specifically, like obviously Bale is 32, and I think due to the type of player he is, he's lost a yard of pace. The injuries he's had, I think he's very unlikely to play another international tournament after this World Cup, isn't he? So that will be his swan song. With Ramsey's 30, and I actually think he could play for Wales for another 2, 3, 4 years. But I also think he might choose to retire at some point to prolong his playing career because of the types of injuries that he's had. He's had a lot of like muscular injuries and things like that. And you've seen, footballers over the time have taken that decision when they get to their early 30s to prolong their club careers, rightly or wrongly, is by the by. But I think Wales ultimately, after the Qatar World Cup, one way or the other, will have to learn how to play without Gareth Bale and possibly Aaron Ramsey, but also people like Joe Allen, who have been vital to the way Wales play football over the last 10 years. They've got to find a new way. And I think a lot of Welsh fans, certainly who I've seen in the comments and on social media, don't think some of the players who played in the Euros are the answer to that question. And maybe some of the players who were on the bench and didn't get enough playing time could be the answer, if that makes sense. We've got loads and loads of questions. So I'm going to throw to a couple of these very quickly. Just last one on Wales. Reese says, here's a question for you guys. What if we fail to qualify for the World Cup? Who takes the blame? Is it Giggs or is it Robert Page? Oof, it's a difficult one.
It all depends what the Welsh FA are going to do in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, they've got to make that decision, of the next manager, and then whoever they appoint the manager, if it doesn't go well, then obviously they've got to take the blame for that, really. But it's up to the sort of FAW now to make that decision quickly for everyone, and then we move forward. Yeah,
I think. It is. I feel so sorry for Robert Page because he's in the impossible position. He's getting judged on the teams he's picking, yet there's a question mark over if it's him who's picking the teams. And then there's also he's in the position that he's in because of what's gone on with Ryan Giggs, which makes that more difficult. Andy, what do you think? Do you think? For me personally, I think Robert Page takes no blame whatsoever
for me,
unless he takes over the job on a permanent basis.
In the circumstances he took over the job and how close to the Euros it was, for him to get us out of the group stages, I think was an achievement in itself. In such a sort of difficult circumstances for him, to get us out there, and I think he deserves the chance to take us forward. Certainly do.
Yeah, listen, I totally agree. I think it was quite evident and obvious that it wasn't all his choice. I think running up to the tournament, there was still a question mark on what the authorities were going to do with the case, and then what the FAW were going to do, and then obviously the decision was made that he was going to run with the team. But who picked that? Did he still have was the squad picked early doors? What was in his mindset? Did he add a couple of players to it? Did he pick the nucleus of it? Listen, for me, I agree with Young. He's got to be given an opportunity now to pick his own squad. So if he's named as manager, he picks the next squad for the qualifiers. And I know in September, I think there's 3. So it's a big chunk of your qualification. So this next month, without getting fit players, and you both said it about the lads playing regular games. So if you've got the David Brooks and you've got the Harry Wilsons and you've got other players who are fit and flying and ready to go and attack, then for me, throw them in. You know what I mean? If you've got lads who aren't playing, then for me, it doesn't matter how big they are, if they've had great careers or the young lads. For me, it's about hitting the ground running with these kind of players who are playing in form. And if that's a manager's job to pick it, and you live and die by the sword. Youngie's been a manager, still is a manager, and it's all about results. And Pagey knows it. And if he gets a job, he's not stupid, that he knows that he's going to pick a squad and a team to win a football match. And it doesn't matter about results. Qualifying for a World Cup, when he gets to the World Cup, it doesn't matter about results again, performances again. It's about results and churning them through. And I agree with what you both said. We said it on the Euro show side, didn't we? That what an achievement it was to get out the group. And the next game against Denmark was just one step too far. And to travel in, probably not team selection, but how the game went, and you know what I mean, and twisting a little bit and trying to get a goal back when you probably didn't need to. And listen, that's by the by. But the qualification of the group was first and foremost. Anything after that was a bonus. But it's just, for me, it's about progression on and giving him an opportunity. And for me, I think he deserves it from how successful he was in the summer.
Yeah, listen, I grew up with Pagey. Obviously, he's a Ronda boy. And, so we know each other well with sort of similar ages and that. And listen, there won't be no other guy who works any harder getting that job right. You know, his passion for Wales and Welsh football is right up there as well. So, you know, and it's easy to say that, but, you know, I totally sort of think he's got to be given the opportunity to sort of take the team forward after the Euros. Certainly. It's
interesting you said that though, Sally, wasn't it? Because we said it in the Euro show. I can't remember which game it was. It might have been the game that the second game that they realised that they were more or less through with the amount of points and the way that it felt with the final game. That his reaction after the game, it spoke 1,000 words for me. You know what I mean? His reaction when the final was when he knew what he'd achieved, and he knew that no other person in that stadium in the world wanted it more than he wanted it, and the desire just came out of him, and it was just so pleasing to see, because I say I've only played with him for a short space of time at Cardiff, but it was an absolute pleasure. You know what I mean? But you could tell that his desire to play for his country was just super evident. You know what I mean? He would wear that shirt with pride. You see him singing the national anthem when he was a player. You see how passionate he was to live in and around the area. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Give him it and let him have that opportunity to showcase how good he is.
And listen, on top of all this, I mean, we're talking about his passion. Listen, he's a good coach as well and a good manager.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Let's give him the credit where he's due. You know, he's managed top players like Bale and Ramsey and got the best out of them to qualify from the group. So
yeah, and he's an angry man as well. So
yeah.
Love you, Paige.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think I agree with everything he did in the Euros? No, but I do think he did enough to show that he deserves a proper go at the job. Yeah, I do. I think he did enough to show that. And I've also heard that he's an exceptional coach. So, you know, is or is. Okay, some questions. Donna Perry says, Scott, who do you think is the most driven footballer at Cardiff City currently?
Oh, good question. Obviously, I haven't been in and around the first team for a while at the moment. So, from the offset, obviously, you know, the skipper, Moza, what a man he is. What a great leader, you know. So, he'll be right up there for me. The way that he leads the group and the way he is off the pitch as well as on the pitch, which is just as important these days, you know, with sort of big squads and keeping people together and all that. So, Moza will be right up there. He'll be right up there for me.
Good shout. I think it was, the question's gone, but I think it was Rob Boyle asked, who was the best keeper you played in front of, or what was your favourite keeper to play in front of?
Good question, actually. Yeah, I mean, Marty Markson. Obviously, he joined us and sort of played in front of him for a short spell. And obviously, he's now gone on to be England goalkeeping coach from that. He was up there. Listen, Neil Alexander on his day. He was, you know, one, if not the best we've had over that period where we're successful as well as a club. So, but I'd have to go with Marge. I think Marge for me.
With that question, Yuri, what makes a good goalkeeper behind you? What makes it easy for you to then
defender? Trust. is a big one. Communication. You know, the simple stuff comes. You know what I mean? You just, you know, if we're keeping a decent line, and I know he's going to be in a good position behind me to sweep up behind us. You know, the trust of us to keep a good line. Then crosses coming into the box, communication. You know, talking, that type of stuff. Yeah. That's all you ask.
Yeah, listen, I totally agree, because I see, and listen, I know Marge inside out, same as you do, and I know he won't take credit for the wonders of Jordan Pickford, for example, but the work he must have done with Jordan in the summer and pre-tournament, because I thought, as in the Premier League, I thought as a goalkeeper, I thought he was poor. I thought he made so many errors. He had zero confidence. So for someone to work with him day in, day out, hour in, hour out, to see, obviously, the meetings that goalkeepers had together, the work they did pre-training, post-training, he needs to take huge credit for it. You know what I mean? Not just with Jordan, with the other goalkeepers he's bringing through as well, you know what I mean? And helping out, because he's doing a great job at Swansea. I know that's a swear word on here, but
he's actually left Swansea now, I think.
Yeah, I know, but it's credit where credit's due, and I think like the answer you've just given about you don't like to take credit about young lads coming through, and coaches do say this, managers say it, but listen, I'm giving him it, because as a proud Englishman, to see the strides that one goalkeeper's made in the summer was just phenomenal, and the goalkeeping coach and other coaches and mind coaches and psychologists and whatever they have, their sports scientists, they've all got to put their role in the same pot and say how successful they've been together, because it's a phenomenal job he's done. Phenomenal.
No, listen, I'm obviously quite close to Marge and speak to him quite regular, and obviously it was one of the reasons when sort of I took over at Cardiff. We brought him back to Cardiff as a goalkeeping coach, and you know what he is. He's a master of the basics. You know, and for goalkeeping, that's massive. You know, just the basic, you know, making saves, right place, right time, and he'll go into great detail on just the basics, which is, you know, is phenomenal. You know, the way he works, you don't see very often, if I'm being honest, and even down to his set plays. You look at the sort of set plays he's done for England, you know, defensive set plays at Swansea. I think it was like ridiculous stats over the 2 years that they conceded in terms of goals from set plays and that. And that's just his fine detail of the basics of simple man marking, maybe, or goalkeepers making saves. You know, the detail he puts in is a credit to him. To be fair, he's done really well.
If you speak to him next, do you want to? If you need any tips on singing the national anthem, I can teach him. I'm happy to teach him it.
I've been on to him all year. There's two things you can't do: is sing that national anthem.
Listen, and this is one thing I feel sorry for coaches and people, because England have gone for the best person to do that job. So they've gone for a Welshman, and a proud Welshman as well. Which it must be such a difficult situation at certain times, and the national anthem is one of those uncertain times and difficult times, because when he's stood there, it does look a little bit uncomfortable, and some people say disrespectful, but I don't, because I know him and I know how proud he is as a Welshman. But it's like when you say a Welsh manager standing there not singing the national anthem. I think it doesn't work, and I think coaches can do it, but I think sometimes a manager's got to be fronting it up for everybody, all his coaches, and just bellow out for everybody, and I think that for me makes it up for it.
No, listen, his passion working with England is right up there. You know, he loves working, obviously, alongside Gareth and that as well. So, he's enjoying every minute of it.
Good stuff.
Cardiff been blessed with some incredible goalkeepers. In fairness, over the last 20 years, it's just been keeper after keeper. Who've been sensational.
I didn't play with him, but whilst I worked with him, David Marshall.
Unbelievable.
Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're right. My boy's a goalkeeper, and I see how much work like he puts in as a 16-year-old. Like the goalkeeper training is so different to the rest of the team, and the intensity and the drills they just do on repeat and repeat and repeat to prepare themselves for games. And like Andy mentioned, Jordan Pickford, you could see the difference which Martin Markinson's made to Jordan Pickford's game, because he looks like a different keeper. So let's get some more of these questions. There are so many. Some of them have been cut off. I saw someone just say then, I forgive me, whoever it was, but they said they want to hear some stories from Scott about the days at Cardiff and Ninian Park, rather than talk about Welsh football. They want to hear some stories from you, Scott, about the good old days. So I mean, I guess the easiest way to kickstart that is to talk about that Leeds game. I guess that's the obvious place to sort of kick us off with that. How intense and hostile was that atmosphere?
To be fair, it was incredible, and it's 20 plus years I think now since the game, but just I can remember not even walking up. I can remember being in the tunnel, ready to go up for the warm up. The noise and the atmosphere out there, and it's like 45 minutes before kick off, which is rare. The atmosphere normally builds up with 10 minutes to go, but it was 45 minutes to go before kick-off, and we were just about to go up for the warm-up, and it was incredible. And when we went out, I just thought to myself, wow, the ground was like 3/4 full, with 40 minutes to go, and they were singing, they were loud, and it was just so intense. It was incredible. It's easy for me to say, and I've said this numerous times whenever I've talked about this game. Sort of the biggest, sort of, what's the right word? Well, put it this way: we were standing in the tunnel before the game to go out for the match, and I used to be sort of 2 behind the goalkeeper. And I can remember just looking at Cavs. Obviously, Cavs was leading us that day, and he was giving it a bit to a few of the Leeds boys, and you just felt at that moment that something special was going to happen that day. You could just tell that, the atmosphere, it was intense. They were a bit on edge, looking at them in the tunnel. And it was certainly like a day that I'll never, ever forget for numerous reasons. On and off the pitch.
Yeah, it's funny that you just said that, because we've asked that question to about 3 or 4, maybe 5 people about when was the moment that you realise, people have said different things. We spoke to various people about people's attitudes, about Rio not fancying it, about people going off injured because they just weren't up to the fight, and they knew straight away from the attitude, from the way that the fans were that and you see the Leeds players that was since that game and came out about their comparing it to Galatasaray and that kind of atmosphere, and it gives you, as a player, it gives you so much of a boost, doesn't it? To kick on. It gives you that extra percentage to just energy to go win a football match.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, the last 15 minutes, we probably was all out on our feet, but we had so much energy in us because of the fans and the intensity around the stadium. And we talk about Gav Gordon that day. He deserves immense credit. The way he put himself about and upset the Leeds back four from the start, really. You know what I mean? It was everyone to a man were bang at it that day, and ultimately I think we wanted it more than Leeds on the day, and that was the difference, really.
But we spoke to, haven't we? We had Gav on, and we spoke to Willie. We had Gav on. It's the unsung heroes, Youngie, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because and you've been there where you're winning your headers all the time, and defenders don't always get the credit. It's always the centre forward who come and get the glory. But it's like you just said there, giving the credit to someone who just tirelessly works the back four, tires people out, gets in people's faces, because that's what you've got to do. You know what I mean? With the Ian Harts and with the Rio Ferdinands and I don't know who else was it Woodgate as well, playing centre half. I think
they got so much quality, Cams. If you don't go after them, they're going to rip you apart, aren't they? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, there were what, semi-final of the Champions League that year? You know what I mean? So they were that good. You know what I mean? They were to a man. Not just the team, by the way, the squad, the bench they had, the management they had. Everything about that football squad at the time was a world-class football team. With their own power, with the best of the best. You know what I mean? So to beat them comfortably, you know what I mean, in your own backyard was just something to be proud of. And I was quite lucky because I'd had a couple of whispers and conversations with Corky a week before that game. So obviously I watched the game. I probably would have watched it anyway, but I watched it a little bit more closely with what was going on. It made me just want to go, just go and sample the atmosphere. And when you say there about the Cardiff fans, I sampled it on my first game in the league, and there was probably I think it was probably only about 13, 14, 15,000 there, and it was just an unbelievable atmosphere. How passionate they were, I just couldn't believe. How loud they were, I couldn't believe. How hostile they were against the English teams, which I just couldn't believe. You know what I mean? I'd never really sampled it before, and but I think you get used to it very quickly. That it's in your favour, and it's so hostile for the opponents to go and play there. And not many teams went to Ninian Park during my time and got the better of them. You know what I mean? There were some bad times. Obviously, playoff semi-final against Stoke City, which was a horrible night for everybody. But I wouldn't say the blew us away. It was just one of those things that go in and just it changed the whole dynamic of the game. But going back to how the fans just drove that football club in certain areas, you know what I mean? Right next to the away fans, behind the goal, on the bob bank. It was just everywhere where you looked was just the fans were just absolutely super.
James Costley says the Leeds game was his first City game, which one makes me feel exceptionally old, but two, what a game to start your
what a game
to start your football viewing. That's simply incredible. That is.
However, how'd you better that? How'd you better?
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's all downhill after that.
Everything's been downhill since. Football's been
wait for the Millennium Stadium.
Football's been horrible since, but bless him.
Yeah, well. Scott, Sam and Man, obviously an interesting chap, interesting character. Do you remember the first time you met him?
Yeah, obviously the man is, he was fantastic what he'd done for the football club, first and foremost, but just a pure crazy man. You never know what he'd be doing day in, day out. And yeah, obviously one of the first times I ever met him, I was fortunate enough to be one of the first players when he came in that they wanted to offer a new contract. I think it was about 3 or 4 of us, maybe Jason Bowen, Mark Bonner, I think, and one other maybe. So, yeah, that was my first sort of conversation with him, which we didn't agree on, really. We didn't get very far on the first meeting, and the sort of contract negotiation went on for about 4 to 5 months, I think. And to be fair to him, he's offering us, at the time, a substantial pay rise to sign. But for some ridiculous reason, he wanted to give me a goal bonus. And I was fighting for a clean sheet bonus for months and months. And he wouldn't give me one. He just wouldn't give me one. And about 4 months later, I've told this story many a time, he sort of tripled his goal bonus for me. And I was like, I didn't score goals. I hadn't scored for like 5 years or whatever. And I signed the contract. I can remember I signed the contract on the Thursday morning. And I scored on the Saturday. And I scored 2 on the Tuesday after as well. So I scored 3 goals in a week and I hadn't scored for 5 years. So he went mental on me. Absolutely mental. Probably cost him at the time probably $6,000, I think it was, in a week. He was fuming, but he was brilliant. He was brilliant for the club. He was brilliant for the players. Day in, day out, there was always things going on. And I remember, I'm not sure if he was there, Cams, Ernie and that. We used to have the circle in the morning, keep ball. And then after that, he used to bring the boxing gloves out. And he used to chuck 2 in the middle at Lan Rumney, like Ernie and Leo. And they should have a tear up for 10 minutes, just fighting each other. And we'd all be betting on who would give up first. And he was just crazy. Some of the stuff he used to do. And I mean, the second day training at Lan Rumney, we've all showered, ready, had our lunch, ready to go. Every car in the cup out, the tyres are all flat, every single one of them. And he opens his boot and he's got about 10 foot pumps in there, and he's selling them for 50 quid a head. Random, like stuff like that. He used to do it every day. I remember Alan Cork is a nice little office at the top of the tunnel, just by the first team change room there. Corky went home for the day. He goes up to the local farmer, gets a couple of sheep, and puts them in Corky's office overnight. Corky walks in the morning, there's sheep's mess everywhere, all over his desk and everything. And that's the type of guy he was. He's just every day there was something. But it was great.
I just think though, Si, it's how many of those kind of chairmen are involved in football anymore. You know what I mean? Youngie's just hit the nail on the head about how good he was for the club. You know what I mean? For me as a player, it took the pressure off playing. You know what I mean? Because you knew, good, bad, or indifferent, however performances, results were going. You know what I mean? You knew that he would come in and he would lighten the mood. You know what I mean? The time that he'd come in the change room and every time you see a chairman in the change room, it's never good news. It's either players are getting battered or a manager's getting sacked. He would come in the change room and he would make a joke or do something, and everyone would just forget about what just happened. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just think it's just so different, and different's good sometimes. Different's good, but it was good for us because it made us a talking point within the players, within the group, within the fans, within probably Welsh football at the time, and probably UK football. I think was so good. And you know what I mean? I know he obviously got banned from walking around the stadium and the grounds after the Leeds game, but he's done it. He did it before that, so you know what I mean. For me, sometimes it's if it works, why fix it?
No, yeah, you're spot on. He was so good for the club, and you know, obviously saved the club. You know, and if I'm being brutally honest, I mean, I think the three men we can sort of thank more Steve Balley first and foremost for saving the club in the early 90s when, you know, he dipped in his own pocket to save the club. Then Sam Aman has come on and taken it to the next level. And to be fair, you know, obviously Vincent Tan has taken it to the next level as well. So, you know, it's credit to all of them, to be fair.
I don't think Steve Balley gets enough credit for what he's done for Cardiff over the years. I feel like he kind of sticks in the background a little bit, but like he's done so much over the years to keep the club going and to keep the club safe.
He's a big part of the club, obviously, and he's the glue who holds it together as well at times. You know what I mean? He's like you say, he likes to stay in the background, but he is the man. You know, especially in terms of the academy and that, and does a lot for the academy. So no, for me, Steve Balley is Mr. Cardiff City.
Scott, I just want to finish off with a bit of credit for those three people you just mentioned there, and I think all three of them for various reasons for me deserve huge credit because everyone always focuses on the negatives. When Sam left, the negatives were focused on. You know what I mean? Vincent now, you know what I mean? All the negatives which have happened throughout his time. And listen, he hasn't got everything right. But the thing he got right was buying the football club and still holding on to the football club and pushing them onto the Premier League and pushing them towards the Premier League where we are currently. So, you know what I mean? For me, I think fans sometimes always look at the negatives because it's easy. And it's easy to blame someone at the top. You know what I mean? Like managers or players or, you know what I mean, each other. Instead of just pushing together in the same direction. But for me, all three, what a fantastic job they've all done.
You're right. This, you know, obviously it'd been easy for me to fall out, but he obviously sacked me from the first team and that. But you know, if you look at the bigger picture, you know, this club is a big part of my life, and I'm a massive Cardiff City fan. I love it, and what he's done for the club in terms of the money he spent, you know, credit to him. He's taken us to another level.
Well, and what I was going to ask you, Scott, is after that Leeds game, what was your reward from Sam Aman? Anything? Did he give you like a present or a prize or was it just a big hug?
No, I think he actually did. I think he's probably done the same for Cams in terms of, remember your football boots, Cams? Did you get them gold plated like?
Gold plated, yeah. See if I can. I've got mine right here, right next to me. Yeah, so mine gold plated there.
Yeah. So he's
beautiful.
He'd done the original boots for me, and obviously then he had a spare for himself done. So they're my dad's. You know, so my dad's looking after them at the moment, and they were special for me. Obviously, the boots I actually scored the goal in.
I'll be honest. I didn't think I was ever going to get them back. He took them back. He took them off me straight after in my news conference. He took them off, in my press conference. Sorry, he took them off me as we were sat there. So I walked back to the changing room with no boots on, and I didn't see him again for about till pre-season. And I came back and he gave me them back, and I didn't think anything of it until probably about 3 or 4 weeks later. After that, he brought them in, and I was made up. I was absolutely just gobsmacked of the gesture. You know what I mean? And that was the man for me. That was just him all over.
And he wanted to take a few of us out the night after the Leeds game. But like I always did, I used to have a quick beer with the lads and I'll always be back at the Valleys. obviously my mum and dad at the pub at the time, so it was time to go back and see all the boys and have a few beers with them.
That was a quiet one.
Oh mate, I can tell you stories for that one. And to this day, I can't find the interview at the moment, but we was talking about it the other day. Someone was asking over it. My mum and dad had the Collier's Arms in Triallo, and we went back there, and it was like 6:15 in the morning, and we were still at the bar. We were smashed. My missus says, "We quit, but we got to go home. You know, we got to get home." So we get home. I jumps into bed about 7:15 in the morning. And about 7:05, my missus is pulling the blinds up. I said, "What are you doing?" She's got to bed. Mm-hmm. She said, "You better get out of bed." And there was about 4 or 5 Sky vans outside the house ready to do interviews with me. Listen, I've been on it for about 10 hours, I think. I was absolutely smashed doing the interview. How I done it? I don't know.
I'm gonna find it. I've got to watch it.
Brutal. That is
good times.
Amazing times.
Cade asked Scott because he's got a big thing about like football memorabilia and stuff. He asked earlier on about have you got like or what's your favourite shirt that you swapped with an opposition player?
Obviously, in the early days, we didn't really swap shirts because the club couldn't afford to have new shirts every week.
Ian Lanham was too tight. He wouldn't give us anything.
Yeah, he was too tight. It's a good question, actually, because I've been digging my old shirts out. I mean, I give a lot away to the families and that. But the one I have kept is obviously the Leeds game. That's in a frame together with Fowler's shirt. So I was fortunate enough after I knocked on the Leeds sort of dress room and Robbie was still in there and he dug to the bottom of the kit skip and gave me a shirt. So they together in a frame, stinking dirty, haven't been washed or nothing. So they're with the place.
Quality that there. And those are the kind of things also, aren't they? You know what I mean? It's memories that no one can ever take away from you. You know what I mean? Your own shirt, Robbie's shirt, you know what I mean? Because you're not about a proper footballing legend there, by the way. You know what I mean? The name God, you know what I mean? He was given to him for a reason, you know what I mean? Because how good he was as a footballer. So, you know what I mean? Absolutely treasured memories.
So, yeah, he's obviously up there. And obviously my Welsh shirts, the 21 shirts and the B shirts, and a couple of times they were sub, were obviously special to me.
I was going to ask you about that, Scott. Your Welsh thing. Obviously, you played with the 21s and the B, I think, as well, and you got on the bench a couple of times for the first team. Like looking back, is there any frustration or just like regret, I guess, that you didn't get to make that full cap?
No, certainly not. You know, I mean, it was a pleasure and a privilege for me just to be in and around those types of players in those days. You know what I mean? You know, I remember Gary Speed was the captain, and God bless him, he was the first one. He was at the hotel front waiting for me as I got called up because got called up late for my first one, and took me into the lads, introduced me to everyone. You know, for me, it was just amazing to be around them, and certainly no regrets for me. It was just a pleasure and a privilege to be in and around training with them guys.
Top man, Scott. I got to say, top man. It's
but there's that side. There's no better feeling in the world than being involved in your country at that schoolboy level to under 16, under 18, under 21 to B level to full squad. You know what I mean? That I get asked the same question about regrets not make the full squad, but to represent my country at any level, you know, I was very fortunate to do it at under 21 level in a very, very strong side. By the way, it was just a dream. I never expected it, so for me it was a bonus. It wasn't anything that I expected to do further. It was something that I treasured. I'm proud of it. Nobody can ever take it away from you. You've got the caps to prove it. You've got the shirts to prove it, and it's something that you take with you forever. And it's just a moment in your career, which for me it's a pinnacle. You know, I mean, people talk about Champions League now, biggest tournament in the world, but for me, there's something special about where standing there in a line, singing the national anthem, and then be given your cap and wearing that shirt. And for me, the 3 lines was just it didn't get any better. And I imagine the feeling of doing it for the full squad would be just wow, would be just something
mental. It's mental. I was talking to one of the Cam lads the other day, one of the local lads here. We was talking about international and football, and I was changed. I mean, I remember playing under 21 football, all underway on the Friday night.
Yeah.
And then jumping in a car, going straight to the airport, flying back from Holland into London at like 12 o'clock that night, landing in Heathrow, jumping in a car, driving to the stadium, having 3-4 hours kip on the physio bed, and then starting on a Saturday afternoon for Cardiff. 290 minutes.
But and obviously we've said this before, haven't we, Si, about the level of players at the minute. If it's League One, they don't get the games called off unless you have something like 3 or 4 internationals taken away, and that, it's just the expectation on the players is just ridiculous, isn't it? The travelling is not viable anymore. You know what I mean? Having to play 2 games in 2 days is just outrageous. You know what I mean? The pressure that puts on your body itself is just a ridiculous thought. But you would never see that nowadays in 2021. You know what I mean? Players need 4 or 5 days to get over travelling, never mind a game. It's just ridiculous. It's so pampered now, it's just absolutely scary.
Yeah.
It's frightening. Scott, what about like, we know things have changed from back in the day to now in terms of how players are off the field, and like Andy's talked a few times about, you know, the going out and whatnot. Like, what was it like for you being a hometown lad? Were you one who would have a couple of beers sort of in and around Cardiff, or you know, where you were living at the time, or did you try to keep a bit of a low profile when you weren't training and playing and stuff?
Yeah, certainly low profile. I mean, there was a number of years, sort of when I was in my early pro years, that they were trying to get me to move to Cardiff, sort of to be closer to the club and that. But I used to always love going, obviously, back to the Rhondda where I grew up. I could sort of, obviously, there's still thousands of Cardiff fans, but I could sort of go back out of the way, quiet in the house, or even the local pub on a Sunday afternoon. You know, I could go in there and just enjoy 1 or 2 pints with my dad and just chill, really. And I wasn't a big one to go up in the town and that, really, if I'm being honest. I was more of a local guy who enjoyed being with his mates and being one of those, really. And I've always been a Rhondda boy, and I always will be one. You know what I mean? And that'll never change.
What was the bigger party? After the Leeds game or after the Millennium Stadium game against QPR?
It was a tough one, to be fair, because they were both great parties. I mean,
Millennium Stadium went on for about a week, though, didn't it?
Well, I can tell you a quick story. My accountant, who'd done a bit of work for me at the time of obviously Cam's goal at Millennium, we couldn't find him the day after, and he had fallen asleep at one of the banks. I think it was Midland Bank on the main street in Cardiff. He used to walk into the bank those days, and you could use the cash machines inside the bank in there. And he sort of moved one of the cash machines to the side and fallen asleep sort of by the side of it. He couldn't, and the doors had locked on a Sunday, so he couldn't get out. We lost him. In a short, listen, they were both great parties. I must say, as a group and as a squad, the Millennium Party afterwards was incredible.
I remember. Obviously, the game was a Sunday, and obviously we went out on a Sunday. We ended up going to a do at the Marriott, I think it was, and then we dispersed here then everywhere. And then we didn't see each other on the Monday, but we all met on the Tuesday. At Cardiff Bay, didn't we? Because I think a few players got released as well, which was obviously disappointing, because we were such a good group and such togetherness within the group. But and I've said this, I said to Gav, and I've said to other people, and other people have said it, that my goal was a great great goal for the club and for the group of players, but for some players it was the end, and it meant that they weren't kept on, and because they probably would have got a contract if that goal hadn't gone in, because the club was what was needing to go to another level. They were bringing in Alan Lees and the Mitchell Langleys and other players, and it was just it's hard to take, isn't it? Because we were such a good group, so close. But going back to that. The Tuesday was just as good as the Sunday, even though the Sunday was amazing. The Tuesday was just as good, and it was just listen. It was, you could go anywhere you wanted and not have to put your hand in your pocket to get a drink, and it was nice to enjoy a drink together and to celebrate something that we worked so hard for. Because you've got to remember, 12 months previous, we had the worst night in my football career, and I drove back straight after that game down to the North East after Stoke, and it was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. I did a 7-hour drive, and by the time I got back, to my house in Middlesbrough, I was still thinking about what had just happened, and I just couldn't get over it. I couldn't get my head and my mind ready for another season in that league because I just wanted to get out of it so much. But thankfully, 12 months later on, probably to the day, we managed to get out of it, which is great. And I think that the relief and the amount of drink consumed that week was just phenomenal, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
I remember the walk. I think the walk was the best from sort of the Millennium. I remember we had a few beers in the Millennium after, and we walked down St Mary Street to somewhere on sort of just off Mill Lane, and all the fans and that. Wow, it was just incredible. Just to see everyone enjoying it. It's not just obviously the players, the fans, families. Everyone it was a massive sort of party for everyone.
But I think that's so important, Simon, that we spoke, haven't we, about the family club, about the Cardiff City, you know what I mean, the family, because it wasn't just the players, it was everybody was in it together, you know what I mean. We were all pushing to get out of that, out that division. It was about the 2 seasons previous, about getting promoted against York out of the old Division 3 into Division 2 to get to the Championship. It was just so important that those progressions were made. You know what I mean, people talk about the goal, but that group, where Cardiff City are currently and where they have been in the Premier League, if it wasn't for that group, 2003, 4, 5, 2 earlier, they wouldn't have been in the Premier League 2 seasons ago. And it's so important that every single player, the Mark Bonners, who didn't get much credit, the Des Ammons, you know, we didn't play many games, the Gav Gordons, who didn't get the game time that year because even I didn't play much that year, you know what I mean? So it was difficult. That those players played a huge part because they pushed each other individually, collectively, and it was, you know what I mean. For me, it was great because I had friends pushing me, I had teammates pushing me, and then I pushed other people, and that's what made it a success. And that for me, it was never gonna stop because we had that togetherness, which was absolutely fantastic.
No, 100%. Yeah, I agree with you.
Spot on. It's those years changed the face of Cardiff City for right up to the modern day, and I think everyone who's a Cardiff fan who lived through that era or looks back on that era, they understand the importance of players like you two, people like Sam Aman, regardless of what you think of Sam Aman and things that have gone on since. Like, if it wasn't for Sam Aman, Cardiff would have gone bust and they wouldn't have been at Cardiff City. And, you know, all the players who were around at that era, your Cavs and your Gabardons and your James Collins, and, you know, there's so many, too many to name, of course, but like they changed the face of Cardiff City forever. And I think that's why people look back so fondly on the Leeds game, on the Millennium Stadium, because it literally changed everything. Because before that, it was not always happy times, even though they were happy days, but not necessarily happy memories in terms of what was being achieved, shall we say. Scott and Andy, to finish off, mate, I kind of just want to talk very quickly about Peter Whittingham. The club finally played tribute to him on Saturday, and of course the fans as well. I have to admit, watching like that flag go across the ground and whatnot was it was quite emotional, and I found it very difficult to process it and to watch. I find it difficult to talk about. And like, I met him once for about 10 seconds, and just the impact that he had as a footballer on my football club and my football watching was just incredible. And I find it very difficult. Which I find in another way, it's almost like a bit stupid that you get emotional about someone you didn't know, but he's a true legend and a true legend of Cardiff City. In my opinion, one of the greatest players to ever play for Cardiff City, vastly underrated footballer. And I thought it was a great tribute. I hope that's not the end of the tributes, because I believe that he deserves all the tributes. I would not be against naming a stand after him or something like that. I thought it was outstanding. But he created some phenomenal memories for us as Cardiff City fans. And I guess I was just hoping to see that or hear from Andy and from Scott just really any memories or thoughts on Peter Whittingham and the tributes from the weekend, really. Scott, you go first, mate, and then Andy can finish us off then before we go. I was one of the fortunate ones, I think, that knew him
obviously knew him before I took over as caretaker manager. Socialised a little bit with him prior to that, and then had that relationship as sort of manager, assistant manager, player. And there's no better words I can say for the guy. He's just simply the best. He was the best on and off the pitch. An incredible guy, and he said a lot, like Cam said previous, to a lot of players, but this guy was special on and off the pitch. Still can't believe he's gone. I had a WhatsApp message today off the security guy at Cardiff City, a guy called Steve, who'd come across a picture and sent it to me, like Wits, me and Russell Slade and Wits talking to us. And it's just still surreal that he's no longer with us. And for me, in my years at Cardiff City and what I can remember, by far the best football player that club has ever had. And on top of that, by far the best person.
Yeah, I've heard he's an outstanding human being as well. Andy, anything to add, mate?
First and foremost, what great words from a Cardiff City legend, absolutely brilliant. One thing that got me at the weekend was the flag and everything was absolutely amazing, and the tribute and the fans were brilliant. But it was the picture of him and his son, which it just blew me away. You know what I mean? That we forget sometimes that these people are normal people. These people are family man. They're husbands, their sons, their brothers for people, and the dads for the kids. And I think we just look at them as a footballer, and they're not footballers. You know what I mean? They're just normal, genuine, and nice human beings. And that day we lost a very, very special young man. And I was very fortunate. I met him a couple of times. I played in Kev's testimonial game with him. Lovely to me. We were having a good chat about football, good chat about life. Obviously, when Cardiff City got promoted against Ipswich Town, we had a good chat again, just about general stuff, about Premier League, about players, about just a general chit chat. And I just agree with Young United there about just a genuinely nice fella. You know, he didn't have to have a conversation with me. Didn't have to spend his time. He just been promoted to the Premier League. It was a huge thing, but to take time out of his day to come and speak to me was just brilliant. And I couldn't thank him enough for that night and his time. So you know, I mean, when I heard the news, yeah, it was so sad, but I'm glad that Cardiff have done something. I do agree. I think more can be done. I think there's other things as well. By the way, they can talk about Chris Parker, we can talk about other people, but Cardiff have had such a bad time in the last 36 months with things with Emiliano Sala and Chris Parker and Wits and other things. Just listen, it was one thing after another, and then COVID with the loss of supporters and things, and it's an absolute nightmare. And you know what I mean. I just think that the club's done something which is great. First game back with the fans, and hopefully he can keep that legacy going. For whatever reason, I think if some fans can get involved with certain things, I think it'll be great. I know Donna likes to get herself involved. Feel free to send the club an email with something. I'm sure they'll listen.
Very, very quickly, would you retire the number 7 shirt? Because I think it's not very often that I would say that is the right thing to do, but I actually think in this case it is.
Listen, Si, if we're gonna have a light-hearted way to finish, if Birmingham City retires Jude Bellingham's number, then Cardiff City can retire Wits' number. You know what I mean? For a serious reason. You know what I mean? So for me, yes, I think you know what I mean, and that's because it's a genuinely nice thing to do and the right thing to do for a football club, because he was a legend, a great man, and a fantastic footballer. And for those 3 reasons alone, I think the answer is yes.
Spot on.
Obviously, you know, if Cardiff City are going to do it for anyone, they're going to do it for Wits. He was, like I say, simply the best. There's nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, 100%.
Great way to finish, by the way.
Absolutely. I thought it was the appropriate way to finish this evening. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for all your questions. I know that we didn't get to some of them. I did try my best to get through as many as we could, but also we wanted to get some stories out of Scott and some memories of his incredible career. Please do subscribe to the YouTube channels, share all the shows, all that good stuff. We'll be back on Friday for the Championship show at 7 o'clock. Please join us, spread the word. Download the audio version from the Sports Social, which will be out in the morning. And most of all, Scott Young, thanks for joining us, mate.
Guys, really enjoyed it. Keep going. Cams, I'll be in touch for the next charity ride, is it?
Mate, yeah, I can't wait. I've only just recovered, mate. My backside has just recovered, mate, so I can't wait.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for the invite. Really enjoyed it.
Loved it, mate. Thanks very much. Keep going.
Good stuff. Good night. God bless. See you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero, a superhero. Breakthrough. It's taken a while. It's been walked away.
We are the ones who mark a new beginning. We are the ones of the spoken word. We are the ones who keep the planet spinning. And yes, one day we will rule the world. When